Hello and welcome everyone to our workshop on pest control. My name is Antonio Lopez Jr., joined by the incredible, amazing Mike Cartozo.
Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about insects, creepy crawlers, things that are maybe bugging you around your house.
Mike.
I had to do it. Finding them in and around your house is a problem, right? If you have that situation, that's probably why you've joined us today, but we are here to help. The things that we're going to discuss today, different ways to think about controlling and removing pests, tips, tricks, key information about pest control in general. We're going to give you some confidence to take on pest control around your house.
We'll cover things like pest prevention, the difference between indoor and outdoor control, treating flying and crawling pests, considerations for rodent control, which I have too much experience growing up in New York City, and natural pest control products.
The most important thing to know is this is definitely something that you can do. You don't always need to hire a service. That's perfectly fine if you find that you just don't want to deal with it,
Absolutely.
or if the problem is so big you don't think you can maybe deal with it effectively.
Mhm.
So you can always hire and get some service and some help if you need it. But to take care of pests, all you need really is some knowledge and some dedication. You can address most situations in your home. Here's something to know. Home Depot carries the same or similar and equally effective products as pest control services. I think sometimes there's an assumption that maybe there's a difference, a big difference in the
Right.
products that are used. There really isn't. And often we have newer or even more innovative products than maybe some of the larger, pest control companies might have. Companies are always creating new and more effective products, and we feature those in our stores along with natural solutions as they become more effective and more popular.
Yeah, and that point about getting a professional service, for extreme cases, that might be the best route to give you that peace of mind. But just consider the value proposition because for a fraction of the price, Mike, you can tackle this on yourself. All you need is the right knowledge, a little insight, and then understand which of these products here are going to have the right solution or the right approach. So it's kind of trial and error, trying a lot of different ways and a lot of different products to get the right results.
Right. Now, when it comes to pest control, it's very similar to a lot of other things in and around your house. If you think about maintenance of some of the systems in your
Mhm.
house, you're preventing future
Right.
problems. Think about weeds in your yard. Sometimes people wait too long and the weeds kind of get out of control. You haven't prevented the problem, you just got to deal with it. But it's the same with bugs. Preventing them really is the most important part because you're preventing the problem from existing in the first place
Yep.
or preventing it from happening again. If you've had pests and you dealt with them, but maybe you didn't follow through and keep up with it, they might come back. So it's preventing them, but also preventing them from returning. Now, when you think about why do you have pests in the first place, there are three things that pests are always looking for, just like any other living thing: food, water, and shelter. And taking those things away or making it harder for them to find them or get to them is an easy way to prevent pests in your home. So, some of the things that you want to do as far as prevention: keep areas where you cook and store food clean and contained.
Mhm.
And you might think, well, I keep my kitchen clean. My
Yeah.
kitchen is clean. But it can even be small things, around the kitchen. Cleaning on a regular basis, but not putting it off too long. Keeping dry goods in sealed containers.
Yep.
Think about it. A lot of pests can chew through cardboard. If you've ever maybe been in an attic or somewhere where you've had a box of something and something has chewed through it,
Mhm.
that's easier to get through than maybe a sealed plastic container.
Right.
So things like dry goods, like cereal, oats, things like that, that some animals might like to eat, keep those in something that's going to be a little bit harder to get to. This seems obvious, but avoid dirty dishes in the sink. Sometimes you don't have to leave a sink filled with dirty dishes for days on end. Maybe you've had a party and you just think, I'll deal with this in the morning, and you leave them overnight. That's an invitation for bugs. That's like a buffet to roaches if they find a bunch of
Oh,
food in your kitchen. So avoid that. Dirty dishes, food scraps in the sink, on the counter, those are easy food sources for ants, cockroaches, other pests. Even your kitchen floor. A tiny bit of crumbs on the floor might not seem like a big deal to you, but that's a big piece of food for a small thing like an ant. Spills, that's a buffet for pests again. One thing that you might want to think about, you see this owl back here?
this guy.
This is a great horned owl scarecrow device. This is very effective. If you've got any kind of pests outside your house, these can be very effective. Obviously, this is organic. There's no chemicals involved in this, but a horned owl is really scary to birds and small pests. These are highly territorial kind of raptors. They're apex predators with no natural enemies. If you place this where an animal can see it and move it occasionally so it seems like it's alive,
Yeah.
it is very effective in keeping things away from your house.
I mean, it's a great point, and I love it. It's any kind of ways to approach it and deter it. To build off of that, Mike, some of those things I've personally been guilty of, and so I try to better myself as a homeowner. So things like no smelly garbage, like reducing that. So taking out the trash as often as possible, but also doing a perimeter check inside of my home. So checking things like broken screen doors, broken screens on your windows, any door seals, holes or gaps.
Small holes.
Exactly, because we know pests are very resilient, especially things like rodents. But build off of that perimeter check. Check out the exterior of your home. Again, looking for any possible entry point for a pest. Also, think about the summertime when there's humidity, there's heat. And if you have things like standing water outside, that's going to be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So, eliminating and reducing that is a huge win. And last but not least, Mike, I love pets, and I know you've got a special place for cats as well. But if you've got your furry friends, think about ways to treat things like fleas for them and maintaining that schedule with flea prevention. Really important. This is where we're looking at other options and products that we'll discuss in more detail in just a moment. But just remember that it's so important to keep that schedule of any type of pest control you're doing. Maintaining a schedule is going to help reduce those pests. It's going to help keep your pets happier. And it's going to help address and focus on all of those areas within your home. So just make sure that your plan or your schedule is in line with what the product is saying, because the cadence of how often you're using these products or replenishing it will vary from product to product. So understand what that life cycle or that lifespan is for the product you're using.
Yep, and be patient. When it comes to bugs and creepy crawlies in your house, we want to get rid of them as fast as possible. I think the problem that people have sometimes, especially with some of the organic products we're going to talk about a little bit later, we can get a little bit impatient. So
Absolutely.
you start using it, once you see that it's maybe being effective, you might think the problem's gone and stop doing it,
Mhm.
but they'll come right back. So like Antonio said, just make sure that you're following the directions and going through all the
Mhm.
steps and doing it as long as you're supposed to.
Right.
But to that point, read the directions. We say this in workshops all the time. It's the one consistent thing that will help you with any kind of project and any kind of product. Because even if you're somewhat familiar with a product, it may have changed over time. And it's one of those things that a lot of us just don't want to take the time to do, read the directions. But pay attention, because there usually are recommended application times and frequency, and you want to match that. You want to make sure that you're keeping up with that, especially with existing pests, and apply at the recommended intervals, and do it as often as you're supposed to
Yeah.
so it can be as effective as it can be.
Yep.
Now, one of the categories is indoor and outdoor. You'll see it online and you'll see it in the store as well. The reasons are this: applications for one area may not be practical in another area. Think about things like a bug zapper. We've got a zapper back here. That obviously is made to be outside. It's effective outside. Wouldn't necessarily work in the house. I guess it could work, but you don't want that in your house, zapping and making all those noises. So that's obviously made to be outside. So there's a difference in indoor and outdoor.
Yeah, great call out. And let's focus a little bit more on the outdoor, because when you look at pest problems, Mike, they really truly start in the outdoor space. So this is where we want to focus on first, because treating this area is actually the best way to help prevent indoor pests as well as outdoor pests. This is going to reduce the impact on things like your landscaping, while also, again, reducing those entry points of pests getting inside of your home. Now, you'll look at some products and they're going to accomplish this in a couple different ways. One way is by creating an actual barrier that prevents those outside pests from coming inside of your home. Just remember, key thing to look at is when you're researching products, if the product is labeled for outdoor use only, it's made specifically for the outside. So if you're looking at something like a granular outdoor product, great way to treat your landscaping It's going to dissolve over time in the soil. And this creates a long lasting solution. But again, it's just for the outdoor space. Now, there are some liquid options that are also really great. And they're going to be ready to use sprays. They may attach to your garden hose. These are going to be a quicker reacting, faster reacting product. But again, outdoor use only. Use that product, spread it evenly across the yard. And again, this is going to help concentrate on some of those problem areas to get that benefit of preventing things from coming inside of your home. Look, overall, the product ingredients and the application process are designed for that outdoor use when it's labeled accordingly. So focus on that end result. Use the product the right way, and this is going to ensure that you have safe application, but also effective application, which means we're going to say it one more time,
Yeah.
Mike. Read the directions every time you purchase, even if it's the same product. Read the labels again because something may have changed and you got to make sure to get that
Yep.
effectiveness, that safe use out of it.
And just like I mentioned earlier, don't get impatient. One of the things that we do sometimes if we're dealing with things inside, you might deal with them effectively and get rid of them,
Mhm.
but they're coming in from the outside. If you don't also deal with the outside, guess what? They're just going to come back in again. They're
Yep.
going to come in for the same reason the other ones came in. Like I mentioned, food, shelter, all of those things. So you want to deal with both, not just the indoors, but the outdoors and be, more broadly effective with these things.
Right.
Now, when it comes to the indoors, the same things apply to indoor pests. Treatments are designed for common indoor pests. They are made to work in your home with minimal or no disruption. Just kind of the opposite, but similar to what we talked about on the outside. For instance, where's it at? This flying insect trap here.
It's a good one.
Um, it's kind of like a bug zapper, but it's not because it works inside. But this is designed for non-invasive indoor use. This has a light on it. And as you probably know, light attracts a lot of pests like flies, fruit flies, gnats. This doesn't change the light in your room, but it's a big, attraction for the pest. It works continuously. There's no odor, there's no mess. It's perfect for kitchens, bathrooms, garages. The key is there's no zapping or pile of bugs like you would get with a bug zapper
Mhm.
outside. Obviously, that's more appropriate outside. You don't want that in your house. But this does have a removable filter that traps those bugs. You just need to change those on a regular basis when it gets filled up.
Yes, we're starting to see there's a lot of options out there. So now when we're looking at the labeling, we saw there are outdoor products, there are indoor products, but there are also products that can serve both purposes. So these are designed for both use inside and outside of your home. A lot of great examples here. You'll see products from brands like Ortho. We've got products from Spectracide. And here's the beautiful part of this product. This is actually something I use in my home, is it's creating a sprayed barrier. So you apply it outside first, go around the perimeter of your home, create that long lasting barrier, and then you can also use this inside of your home. So if you have a particular area, maybe a bathroom, kitchen, basement, whatever it might be, read the instructions, apply that barrier. So you kind of have a two-pronged approach in creating that barrier.
And think about that. You might think, wow, you're talking about a lot of differences, inside, outside, both. How do I choose? Just know that there are some problems that are specific to outside.
Mhm.
You want to get something specific for that outside problem. Same thing for the inside. But like you said, if you've got problems for both, or if you're dealing with both, you can use something like that. Maybe it's not, quite so confusing, but just know that they're all specific to problems. You just want to make sure you get the right one.
Yeah. Mike, we're going through these options here, and there are a lot of products that you'll see at the Home Depot. And the cool thing, to your point earlier, is that a lot of professionals use these products and they're available at the Home Depot, which means you have access to a lot of that high quality, effective products. Just make sure you're still following the exact instructions. This is going to ensure that safe application and the effectiveness that we spoke to a few times. The variety of products, they're going to have different ways to apply and they may serve some unique needs. So let's say you got a roach problem. And I remember growing up in New York City,
Uh,
cucarachas were the bane of our existence. I mean, I have horror stories of a big cockroach just landing on my arm and freaking me out. So if you've got a roach problem, you're thinking of different ways to address it. And across your research, you discover this roach killing gel. All right, so now you've identified one pest problem and you connected it to this product solution. Just keep in mind, this may take more than one application to work, and the cadence might be, every 3 months, read the labels. but it highlights specifically one of the areas of focus. If you use this product, you cannot use that spray barrier we talked about before, Mike, and spray that repellent over this product because now you're rendering this product ineffective.
Right.
And then that leads to that frustration. You're like, oh, this stuff doesn't work. So again, read the labels. It'll tell you things like that. Let's say you have a fruit fly problem. This is a fruit fly trap, and it actually just so happens to look like a fruit.
It just happens to look like I
Just
guess, an apple.
look at that apple. Apple a day keeps the fruit fly away. And so this trap has specific instructions too. Simple application. It's got to be placed upright. You got to put it in that area where you've seen those fruit flies, and then just know and make sure that it doesn't get knocked down or tipped over, because then again, it's not going to be as effective. Just know you may come across products that are new to you, especially with the recent innovations that are occurring to expand the products available. Try option that you might feel will best suit your pest problem. And keep in mind, this may take multiple times. You may need more than one product. You may need more than one application to keep having that effectiveness.
Yep. And again, we said it before, but it is critical that you read the labels because even if it's a product that you've used before, it may have changed to your point.
Right.
There may be some new thing that you need to be aware of. And there are really common mistakes you might make. If you use that one product, if you didn't read the label, you would think it's fine. Now I'm going to spray the whole house. You end up spraying over that. Now that's not working.
Yep.
Now, the next way that pest control is divided is between flying and crawling insects. Fruit flies and cockroaches work differently, right? So you've got to treat them differently. So dividing the flying and the crawling pests is another way to get the best solution for the specific pest that you might have. One of the ways to do that is through targeted applications. You can treat flying pests several different ways. Generally, think of treatments as targeted or sweeping. Those are the two kind of categories we're going to talk about now. Targeted is where you really are focusing on one specific area, one specific problem somewhere in your house. It's not a broad problem. It's not all over the place. It's one place. So you want to target that one place, right? Generally, the way that's done is using bait to attract the pest, then eliminate it. For example, there are hanging plug-in traps. There are baited traps like this liquid ant. Where did it go? Here it is. Liquid ant baits. So what that does is there is a liquid inside these little things that you set wherever you happen to see ants. They're pre-filled and ready to use, designed for worker ants to consume and survive. And the way it works is the ants end up taking that back to the colony. The only thing you want to do is ensure that there is always a supply of the bait liquid because these will empty. These will become empty at some point. Obviously not effective at that point. But just be patient and give it some time. I'm going to give you a quick story.
Uh-oh, story time with Mike.
This is true. I lived in an apartment one time and I walked into the bathroom and I saw this extremely long line of ants on the wall.
Oh no.
Freaked me out. What did I do? The same thing most people would do. I grabbed some bug spray and I sprayed them and I killed them and they were gone. But guess what? 2 days later, they were back, climbing up and down the wall. I was like, what in the world? And I had just moved into this apartment. I had never dealt with that. Contacted my landlord and he gave me a bait to put in the bathroom. And he said, leave it there because it's going to take several days. So every day I walked in the bathroom and I saw those ants and I wanted to get rid of them. I wanted to spray them, but I didn't because I wanted the bait to be able to do what it does. I wanted the ants to take it back to the colony. Guess what? After a couple of days, there were a lot less ants and then there were no ants. So again, it's really important that you be patient with some of these things and give it time to do what it's doing. It's working, maybe just not quite as fast as you wish it would, but it's doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, you're kind of managing your expectations there.
Absolutely. But it treats flying insects from the air. You can hang those in different places so the flying insects can get to them. And then for the crawling insects, you just put those on the ground in different areas. So they both work the same way, but you just kind of target where those insects are.
Yeah, alternatively, Mike, there's that sweeping type of approach. Essentially what this is it's another approach that's removing pests, but just from a larger area. So some examples you might think of when you're looking at treating maybe indoor flying insects and some other ones could be a fogger. Now, Hotshot has a couple options, and let me grab this guy. So there's a Hotshot fogger that is regular one. It's same process of preparation. You got to take certain steps and it's all itemized right here. This is great, but I'll make a key distinction because there's another product, and that's Hot Shot No Mess Fogger. That product essentially reduces some of the prep steps. Things like you don't need to turn off any appliances if they have a pilot light. But this is going to cost a little more on the Hot Shot No Mess Fogger option
Right.
because it's less steps to take. The normal fogger is going to cost a little lower price point, but there's more steps. So again, it's one of those options of a sweeping type of pest control product. And then we have for outdoor lawns, things like that can help with your yard that are going to treat mosquitoes, ticks more. And that's where we talked about earlier, some of that ready to spray use stuff. We've got one that might attach to a hose or that's in that bottle by Begon. And that is again giving you a wider focus area for your pest control. Now, these treatments, again, they're covering that entire area. And while they don't target just a single pest, it's going to be an effective way to cover a big space and have that impact, get you some of that motivation, say, yes, I can do this and I'm getting it done right.
So again, real quick, just to compare and contrast, targeted is if you have a single issue
Single
in
issue.
a single spot, you want to target that spot.
Yep.
If you've got something like fleas, a long time ago, I had a cat and all of a sudden we had fleas in the house and I used a fogger because if you've ever used one, it kind of spreads and disperses that all over the house. It was very effective.
Yeah.
A day later, I had no fleas. But it was a bigger problem. Right? Fleas tend to jump all over the place. So you can't target those because you can't keep up. They're running all over the place. So that's why you would use, something on a broader scale.
Yep. Great point to clarify there. Mike, earlier we spoke a little bit about rodents, and I told you some firsthand experience, growing up in New York City. I think we've all seen that video of the rat eating a New York slice on the subway, the stairs. But this is a larger umbrella. Rodents can cover a lot, and they can be trickier than some of the problems we talked about before. You can do it. Again, it just takes a little bit of that know-how. But I couldn't help talk about this workshop without a little New York reference there on our rat situation. Yeah, just a little sprinkle there.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to rodents, it's one of those things. Like you said, they are bigger.
Mhm.
Seeing a bug in your house is one thing. Seeing a rat is a whole other thing.
A little more.
But some of the same approaches we've discussed work with all pests, including rodents. You've got options though. For rodents, you can trap them, you can eliminate them, or you can prevent them, or maybe a mixture of all three, depending on the problem.
Mhm.
However, rodent is kind of a broad category. When we think of rodents, I think most people think of rats and mice, but it also includes moles, squirrels, prairie dogs. You're probably less likely to see those in your house, but just so you understand the category,
Yeah.
porcupines, beavers, guinea pigs, hamsters, those are all rodents. If you're thinking rabbits, rabbits used to be considered a rodent, but a long time ago, they were uncategorized as rodents, so there's something else now. But all of these different rodents are a little bit different and they're treated differently, and you have a variety of products to use for them. You can humanely trap them or eliminate them and prevent them in the first place. Now, before we get into the products that we want to focus on today, here are some great ways to prevent rodents altogether. A lot of people don't know that mice can detect your scent on traps, and this will keep them away. So whenever you're handling bait or traps, wear gloves. Any kind of rubber glove that you have around the kitchen, the ones that you use to do dishes, you can wear those gloves and it will keep your scent off of the mouse trap. Also, wear those gloves when you're handling the trap after you catch a pest, just for health reasons. Now, when it comes to bait, you can use cheese. People automatically kind of think of cheese when they're talking about a mouse trap. Mice will eat cheese, but rodents are primarily nut and seed eaters, and they're strongly attracted to peanut butter and hazelnut spread. Those are much better options. Also, you want to use a tiny amount. Think about it. If you put a big glob of peanut butter, some people do this and they wonder why the mousetrap's not working. The reason is a mouse can get to the edges of that glob without actually getting on the mousetrap. So if you use a little bit and put it right in the middle, they're much more likely to have to walk on the mousetrap. And obviously if they're on it, they're more likely to set it off. Also, their calorie needs attract them to chocolate, something you probably never thought about. Also, when temperatures drop, mice tend to focus on building their nests. So you can lure them to your traps by using things that they can utilize to make their nests. Things like strips of newspaper, twine, dental floss, Cotton balls. These are all things that mice really like to use in building their nest. So putting those around the trap will do a really good job of attracting them to the mouse trap. Another trick is to make the mice or the rats comfortable. Mice are naturally wary of new objects in an area. You can trick them by putting out a baited but unset trap for several days. What does that do? Well, the mice will get used to seeing it, and if they get to the bait that you've put on it and the mouse trap doesn't go off, then obviously they're more comfortable around it. Once you notice that the bait is gone, you know that the mouse has found the mouse trap, right? And they're used to being around it. So then you can set the mouse trap, and they're much more likely to trip it at that point. Now, what about moles? We get a lot of questions about moles. You can use repellent granules like commercially made mole control granules. They release castor oil into the soil. We'll talk about that in just a second. But you just sprinkle those granules over your lawn and garden. You can also use a non-toxic mole repellent that you make yourself. You can mix castor oil, 3 parts castor oil with 1 part dish soap. Just mix those up with water. The castor oil won't kill the mole, but it does tend to upset their digestion and makes them unhappy, and they're going to want to go somewhere else. You can use ultrasonic repellents, kind of sound disturbance spikes that you put in your yard, and they just make sounds that the moles don't like. So that's a nice way to kind of annoy the moles and drive them away. You can also plant a barrier garden. Moles tend to avoid the smell of daffodils and marigolds. By planting those, you're going to have another natural kind of deterrent to them. And last but not least, just a physical trench around your garden bed. You want to dig that about 3 feet deep, fill it with rocks and wire mesh. That's going to make it much harder for the moles to dig into your garden from underground. Now, for rodents in general, here are some other ways of dealing with them. Some people have no problem with the tried and true mousetrap. We've got
Got this guy.
just a simple regular mousetrap here. We've all seen these. They're obviously very effective and they get rid of the problem pretty quick.
Mike, does this actually work? Can you put your finger there?
I didn't set it
Okay.
and it's still in the plastic, so don't have to worry about that. Didn't want to risk that during the workshop. But again, some people don't mind that. Some people do mind that. They might like the idea of the rat now not being a problem and running around the house, but it's lying over in the corner and it's dead and I don't want to deal with it. So some people aren't keen on that. But others prefer just a more fast-acting bait and poison kind of a thing. Maybe after eating the poison, the pest can wander off and die someplace else. One thing to know about that, sometimes people worry about if they use a poison, is the rat going to eat it, go into the wall and die in the wall?
Right.
That can happen.
can.
It happens every once in a while. But the way that these work is the pest, after it eats the poison, it's going to try to find water before it dies. So what that means, they're much more likely to leave your house looking for water and to die outside the building or outside your house if you're concerned about that. But just know that's how they work.
Yeah.
But if you want to trap and relocate an animal, whether that's a squirrel or a rat or whatever it is, we have these live traps that we have in the store. You can get these online too, but you just bait this, you kind of hook up the door so it's triggered when they go into the trap. If you've ever used one of these, they're very simple, but once it goes in, it kind of gets locked in there. Then you can relocate it someplace. So you're not killing it, you're not poisoning it, especially, if it's a squirrel. People maybe don't feel so bad about a rat, but a lot of people don't want to necessarily kill a squirrel. So you might want to catch that and move it to another place. Just know this, that if you want to trap and relocate it, most animals are going to return to a place where they know they can find food and shelter, like your house. And if you don't get it far enough away, they're probably going to find their way back to your house, unless they find an option between where you put them and where you live. So when you're getting rid of a mouse or a squirrel or a rat, take them at least a couple of miles away from your house. People are always wondering, how far is far enough? Generally speaking, I've heard a mile, but a mile's not as far as you might think it is. Depending on what's in that area, they might be incentivized to come back to your house. So to be safe, 2 miles, get them as far away as you can, and just make sure that they're not going to come back. But you also, just like we talked about earlier, check options for your specific rodent problem and just choose the best option for you based on your own situation and your own, sensitivity to different approaches. It's an important part of pest control. Again, prevention. Look for repellents. Keep the rodents away from your house in the first place, and you don't have to deal with it. And obviously, after they're removed, you want to make sure they don't come back.
Yeah. This made me just think of so many products, so many innovations that we recommend and say, hey, just go check it out. Do your research, go online, go to the store. But here's a little fun fact, Mike. Did you know that a lot of traditional foam insulation products are soy based? Which is kind of an interesting thing. Soy-based products are very eco-friendly, but this can become a snack for those rodents you talk about. They might chew through it, and then now you have that problem. In fact, in the automotive industry, you see a lot of vehicles dealing with this, with the car wiring being soy-based, and then rats potentially eating through it. So it's something out there to balance the eco-friendly versus the impact and the problems it can cause. So what we suggest is consider using a foam insulation that may be it's constructed literally with a rodent barrier. So it kind of reduces the likelihood of rats chewing through it. The goal here is filling any hole or gaps, even if they're small, because rodents can contort
Yeah.
their bodies through the smallest of cavities.
Tiny little holes.
So use that foam insulation with the rodent barrier and fill those gaps, cover it up. Now, an extra tip I wanted to add here, another option, Mike, we talked about this before, is if you want to stop pests from coming through that hole, because rodents are so resilient, think about maybe adding like a metal mesh barrier to that hole with the foam insulation too. So you're kind of giving it a little more rigidity and less likelihood of that rat going
Yeah.
through that
And
gap.
I actually did that once. I had a townhouse and I had squirrels in the attic and I found the hole that they were coming in and I
Mhm.
filled it up. Well, they kept chewing through it. So I added the metal mesh in addition to the
Stop.
foam and it stopped them because they couldn't chew through that.
There you go. Firsthand stories. Now, another thing that you kind of are seeing more and more of are natural products. And there are natural products available. We've got a couple here in the backdrop. They've come a long way in the last few years, and they might include ingredients like plant based essential oils. In fact, going back to the rodents, Mike, did you know peppermint oil is one of many essential oils that can serve as a natural deterrent to repel rats and mice? So a little bonus there to build
Yep.
on your
Absolutely.
repertoire.
And we talked earlier about being patient. I think in the past, even though the natural organic products were working, they weren't working necessarily as fast
Right.
as other more traditional solutions.
Mhm.
So people thought, "Well, this doesn't seem to be working." But as far as the natural products, as always, again, read the directions, ensure proper use and application because sometimes the smallest little thing that you're not aware of can make the difference in how well it works. Know when and how to apply it, and if you're leaning towards those more natural products, know that the industry, again, has progressed. There's a lot of natural solutions that are more effective than they were in the past. Just check the product reviews. That's another thing. If you're not quite sure, customers are really honest about these things. And if
They
you
will
look
tell
at
you.
the reviews, they will tell you this worked better than I thought it did, or it didn't work as well as had expected. That's a really good way to kind of, if you're choosing between different ones, to pick one that will work for you. But sometimes they just take a little longer, but they are effective.
Right. Yeah. Another thing to add here, and I want to say this is like a call to action because you still might feel lost sometimes when you're dealing with a pest problem, and your knee jerk reaction might be to just call somebody to fix it and address it. But if you look on HomeDepot.com, we actually have a great, effective pest problem solver tool that's online. And this can make the identification process easier, the solution process much easier. Go online, check it out. You can look at the different categories of pests that you might have. So you have a lot of creative control here to find out what's going to work best for your specific pest. Look on that also on the individual product pages. So if you see a product that you like that we're talking about here, you jump on there. Again, it's going to link you to that pest problem solver tool as well.
Yeah. So when you're on the website, when you're looking at a variety of products and you actually select one to read more about and click on it, that's what we call the product page because it's just on that one specific product. All of those product pages have that link to that tool. So it's really effective and helpful.
Yeah, great option.
Now, we've covered a lot today. General information regarding pest prevention, the difference in indoor and outdoor control, treating flying versus crawling pests, considerations for rodent control, and natural pest products. Just think about this. It's a lot to remember and think about, but
Mhm.
prevention is a huge part of pest control. Just like weeds, like we said, just like maintenance. The more you prevent the problem in the first place, the less of a hassle it'll be down the road. Read the labels for specific directions and safety precautions. Be patient. Some of these solutions take time. And focus on the pests' food, water, and shelter. If you eliminate those things, There's a good chance you'll eliminate the pest.
That's right, Mike. And don't worry, folks, if you didn't get all of this information, we have a resource guide. Download it in the related content tab. You can also replay this workshop later as an on demand workshop. Just use the link that you used to join the live workshop or look out for the email. We also have it available typically on our on demand section for workshops. Uh, Look, overall, Mike, I really hope that we hit the mark and we gave our customers out there some more confidence in tackling their pest control problem. We hope to see you on future workshops and appreciate you joining today. So, from Mike, myself, the whole team here, thanks for joining and thanks for shopping at the Home Depot.